this video, we are putting a 2014 Seat Mii through its paces and finding out a little bit about its siblings. On paper, I should like this car a great deal. It has a thrummy little 3-cylinder engine at the front, it's small and cute, it's everything Hubnut loves. But we'll take a look around and see what we think. So Seat is, these days, kind of the Spanish arm of Volkswagen, but obviously previous to that it had links to Fiat. It was an independent company bought by Volkswagen Group, much the same as Skoda. The car we see here is effectively a Volkswagen Up. Volkswagen Up was a concept in 2007. It then came to market in 2011, so already this design is 11 years old. I think it was a year or two after that the Seat and Skoda versions appeared. Hold there, camera lady, because one key styling difference: the Volkswagen has a bit of an angle there on the bodywork. The Seat and Skoda, it's a flat line, and grills and rear lights are about the only difference between the three cars. They each have their own rear lights. All three cars, the Skoda Citigo, Seat Mii and the Volkswagen Up, built in Bratislava in Slovakia. So yeah, it's an interesting mix of Spanish brand, German engineering and a Slovakian build, but they've been very, very popular. I have actually driven an E-Up, which is the electric version. That was some years ago on the channel when I was very much getting into electric and went off-roading in it. We're not going to do any off-roading today. But I've never driven a petrol one, so it's going to be quite interesting to see how this one goes. It is mildly modified, which isn't general Hubnut fare, but I think it's been modified very well. It's actually been lowered 30 mil, which you can't generally tell, or it looks a decent height anyway. It's got a little body kit on it off a Volkswagen Up, and it's got a ridiculous exhaust, which I still can't decide if I love it. Miss Hubnut loves it and is now wanting a sports exhaust for her charade. I'm finding it might be a bit much, but we'll get it out on the open road and see what we think. So here we go. There is a tiny little 3-cylinder engine with multi-point fuel injection. How advanced. It's 999cc. This example produces 74 PS, which is about 73 brake horsepower. There's also a detuned one, which is 59, I think. Yet both engines produce the same 17 Newton meters of torque, which is not bad going for a little 1-litre engine. Even the battery's dinky. But actually access doesn't look too bad in here, and you can actually see it is an actual engine. Amusingly, the door seems to take up most of the length of the car. There is a 5-door version as well, but this is the 3-door. And this enormous door, that's going to be fun in a supermarket car park, opens nice and wide, and then you can clamber aboard. It's certainly a high quality sound, as you kind of expect from Volkswagen Group. There's probably lots of weight in the door to make it sound nice and chunky. But yeah, it's all very Volkswagen-y. Volkswagen stalks, nice leather bound steering wheels, quite sporty, radio built into the dashboard, and down here the gear lever for the 5-speed gearbox. All feels so very, very Volkswagen. The essential 12-volt power outlet, which sadly Fiat didn't often fit to their Pandas, another car I'll be thinking of throughout this review. But yeah, I'm quite liking, we've got a lot of bright plastic in here. It's not a sea of black, although you'll notice the top of the dashboard, the bottom of the windscreen seems an awfully long way away. We only seem to have one cup holder. So that's quite nice and simple. It just flips out there. Are we checking the glove box to see if we've got any more? No, sadly not. But we have got decent door bin storage. Another thing I've noticed, electric window switches. There is one there, and there is one over here. There is not a passenger switch on the driver's side, but the car's fairly narrow, so I can actually reach across. You want to film that? And operate the passenger window that way. Yeah, not ideal, but little vent, quite nice. Rotate, and you can adjust them. I think that's quite a nice feature. And but I will say, I'm not even going to try and do a rear seat test because the rear leg room is just hopeless. But the seat does fold 60-40. I think the backrests just drop down. I don't think it tumbles forward because there isn't room. So you can extend the boot space. And I suppose we'd better go and have a look at that boot space. So we will pop the hatch, and what looks like it'll be a tiny boot is actually quite surprising. The parcel shelf simply folds up and latches into place. Nice little mechanism there to lock it in. But yeah, it's quite a deep boot. It's a very high lip, so you've got to lift your shopping over it, but you can see from the height of my backpack just how deep it is. That is actually a fairly usable space. And then, as I was saying, you can fold the seats down to extend your stowage space further, but it's not flat boot. This isn't built massively with practicality in mind. It's an urban city car, but you know, you can extend the space to cram a bit more in should you feel the need. Right, let's fire up the little 1 litre engine. Yeah, the exhaust on this one, we have got the window open at the moment, but that is oh, that's interesting. That's my foot flat to the floor. It won't let you rev more than 4,000 revs. Does that change if it's in gear? No, it's got a sanity mode. How boring. But nonetheless, it's a hilarious noise. It does sound ridiculous. So let's get on the way. Fast it is not, but it's just hilarious because this tiny little shopping trolley is trying very, very hard to sound like a Nissan Skyline, and I absolutely love that. The Volkswagen Up was available in GTI form with a little turbocharger, so I think those are actually properly brisk. 0 to 16 like 8.8 seconds. Let's make sure the coast's clear and that's 60 miles an hour. Eventually we got there, and then ease off. And that's a surprising thing about these. Even just going back 20 years, a city car was a car you didn't really want to drive outside the city, but by this stage this is a car you quite happily drive everywhere. I will say the owner is actually planning to fit a different exhaust, because even he's starting to find this one just a bit much. And it is, at some speeds, it really booms away. But yeah, it's just a really capable car. There's a bit of wind noise, a bit of road noise, but it's not really obtrusive other than the silly exhaust. The steering weights up nicely at speed. It really does feel like a very competent car. Now, the electric version has had 2 phases. Initially, they didn't have a particularly big battery, and while they claimed over 90 miles of range, I think I was finding it more like 60, 70 miles. And at the time of testing it, the infrastructure was absolutely woeful for charging. It's a little bit better now. It's not superb, but it is better. And with a bigger battery, then they claim the range is more like 160 miles, I think. So that's probably going to be 120, 140 in actual daily use. And of course, the electric one has the benefit of being much quieter. But because there's an electric version available, they have to build these things properly, so it feels very solid. Everything's got a lovely feel to it. There's no trim rattles or anything. It all feels absolutely bob on. And while we're stuck in this 40 limit, maybe now's the time to do the windscreen wiper test. Oh, look at that. It looks like the 2 wipers are going to hit each other, but they do overlap up in this top corner. There's just a hint of a triangle there, a very small one, but I see no dribbles of disappointment. I believe we're all good. Aha! 60 miles an hour. Yeah, that's noisy. It really does not feel very brisk at all. I think the gearing is quite tall. Increasingly common to try and eke out a bit more fuel efficiency, but yeah, this is a really nice car to drive. It just feels so solid in a way city cars don't always. just has that quality feel that Volkswagen are so good at. Volkswagen not always as good at reliability as people would like to believe, but they do build quality, that feel of luxury quite well, which has helped turn around the fortunes of Skoda and Seat within the Volkswagen group. I'm just going to have a look at my screens and see if we've improved the fuel economy situation. Oh yeah, we're up to 43 mpg now, and as we're going downhill, that's getting ever better. Interestingly, you can't actually buy a brand new Seat Mii anymore, or rather you can't buy a petrol powered one. I think both the Citigo and the Mii are now electric only, but you can still get a Volkswagen Up with a petrol engine. But for how much longer, I'm not sure. Yeah, when I tested that E-Up, I was kind of blown away by the how refined it felt. Obviously, you just got no noise at all, and it did feel somewhat hampered by its short range. So I'm glad they've done an extended range version now. So in a way, I'm driving a car that's actually current, which feels very un-Hubnut. But there we go. Oh, we have burst into the 50s on our average fuel consumption since setting off. I have to say, I was expecting the ride to be worse than it is. They have a reputation for being a little firm from the factory, and this has got lowered springs on it, so it should be even worse, but it somehow isn't. Yeah, we're up to 70 miles an hour, and exhaust aside, it feels really rather good. There is a bit of wind noise, but it might be the wind deflectors, aftermarket wind deflectors that are being fitted. Quite useful things, so they allow you to open the window and get the ventilation without getting air direct in your face, or rain more often here in Wales. But yeah, it just feels competent. It handles nicely as well. It feels quite encouragingly grippy. So yeah, it's a fun package. Well, I say fun package, it's not fun like a Sherrard GTTI fun. It just hasn't got the performance, but the exhaust certainly brings a little hilarity with it. I think it's a bit like our Sherrard L251. The gearing's a bit too tall for fun, so you lose some of the zippiness that would otherwise be in effect. Oh, the Mackies. We should probably go and do a handbrake turn in that car park, but yeah, it grips well. That's 52 miles an hour in second. So like I say, it is quite tall gearing. I believe you could have cruise control on certain trim levels as well. So you really did get everything you need to make it a good car. Air conditioning, I think, was mostly standard. Obviously, you got power steering, quite a bit of safety gear. So it is a proper car in miniature, not a completely cheapened out city car. A few things are coming to mind. This seat is starting to do my head in. There is a fixed head restraint that's just part of the seat design. It's right where my head wants to be. I'm finding that deeply irritating. It's something I find often in modern cars. They seem to force me to sit with my head forward. Also, there isn't a rest for my clutch foot. There's actually room to the left of the pedal. There's room for there to be one, but there isn't one. So I don't like that very much either. So it's not a complete clean sheet of win. I also do find it, given this is the higher powered version, I would expect a bit more get up and go about it. There just really isn't any. Interestingly, when the first concept came out in 2007, it was actually rear engined rear wheel drive, rather like the Renault Twingo and Smart 4.4 of around that time. So but obviously Volkswagen have had enough making rear-wheel drive, rear-engine cars rather, so that they reverted to a more conventional format for the actual production car. There we go. That's the hilariously noisy Seat Mii. I have to say that is definitely too much exhaust for me. After all, the car, despite its looks, is about as sporty as a packet of crisps, but it probably runs on about as much energy as you'd find in a packet of crisps. It should be a good little economical city car. Very nice to finally tick the box and drive one of these with the actual petrol engine, but you know what? I think I'd probably be more tempted buy the electric version, especially now it's got a bit more range on it. But still, I love driving different cars, and there is still a lot here I like. I like a Frummy 3-cylinder engine, but also like a bit of refinement in my small cars. Compared to something like my Daewoo Matiz, this is like a bleeding Rolls Royce. Yet it just doesn't quite have the same fun factor. So swings and roundabouts, isn't it? You can have your fun, but having your fun and your luxury together, difficult to achieve. Anyway, I hope you found that interesting. Don't forget you can head to the Hubnut store if you wish to support what we do, or there are various support options in the description below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in a future video. Farewell. Subtle.